Hello, and welcome to the Global Luxury Real Estate Mastermind with me, your host, Michael Valdes. Today's guest is somebody I just adore, somebody I get to work with every day, somebody I actually just got to meet in person after knowing for a year. Stacey Onnen, the president of U.S. Operations for eXp Realty. Welcome to the show.
Hello. It's funny. I was just thinking about that this morning, thinking about how much fun it was to get to finally see the face and see, you know what I mean? The in real life personality. And it was, but yet at the same time, it was that normal moment we have where it didn't feel like it was the first time I'm meeting you at the same time. It's like, yes, it's the first time I put the body to who you are, but the rest of it was already there, which is just cool.
It is. You know what's so funny too is that whenever we sort of meet in this virtual reality and then you meet in real life, but we've had like Zoom operations and things like that.
Absolutely.
Everyone sort of says to me, "Oh my God, you're much taller than I thought." And I'm like, "Well, how short do I look in Zoom?"
And everybody says to me, "Oh, you're much shorter."
We did have that little picture together, which was adorable.
You know what? I think I only grew 1 inch since the 5th grade, by the way. So yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
You know what's so funny? My mom is 4'11" and I'm almost 6'3".
Isn't that funny?
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm 5'2" and my husband's 6'4". So
there you go. Those photos there's a lot of those photos in your life.
There's a lot of those photos in my life.
So, Stacey, you have well over 2 decades of experience in this business. So for the sake of the audience, just tell us how you got started in this crazy industry.
Right? You know, that is the funniest thing. I have asked myself so many times, like, why did I actually first go into real estate? I was doing accounting for a construction company. And I just literally remember not realizing that while I loved the logic behind accounting and all of that, even at the company I was at, I kept going downstairs and working the service desk. And I would even go out on some fireplace installs. How's that for weird? I could build a chimney pipe for you if that's not a strange conversation, you know, but I realized that being behind that desk, like that portion of it without that connection, wasn't right for me. And so I remember I went and got my real estate license and did both for probably the first 2 years, like a lot of people do, you know. And then a lady I sold a house to, I finally gave her my old job so I could actually get out. It was the only way to get out of the company. It was awesome. And then I was that crazy human who 3 years into it, I was doing the parts of real estate that I loved. I was doing big land acquisitions, turning them into subdivisions, going through entitlements, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then selling it for the builder at the end piece. And we did model homes. And then I did that crazy thing 3 years in. Looking back, I realized how crazy it was. I opened my own brokerage 3 years in. Like, I think I was 31 at the time. And it was, maybe it was that, I always jokingly think it was that cocky year where I'd gotten like NARs 30 under 30. So it was like, well, heck, I can conquer the universe. Now let's just open a brokerage, you know?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You can sell real estate. I'm sure you can run one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And then and then in 2008, I actually sold it. I sold it to a Keller Williams, stayed on with them and did a lot of their mentor stuff there and helped with the brokering and did training. And in the meantime, realized how much I missed brokering. So I opened a CE school, helped like the Arizona Association rewrite some of the GRI type stuff and taught ABR and just a lot of those different NAR and those kind of classes and loved it. And then I always call this gentleman my broker crush because he's like my broker mentor in the industry. And it's a gentleman named Jim Sexton. And I remember I was driving down the 202, when Jim Sexton called me. And we'd been talking back and forth. And he actually got me back into brokering again by literally telling me how far the office was from my house. Like, you're coming back. And so I did. And then I ended up running operations for that company and running the brokers for multiple states and then running their operations. And that was when, Glenn and team called me and said, when you want to do what you're doing here and just do it all over. And for the way my brain works, that's like the ultimate puzzle. Like we were in 30 something states at the time, had 7,000 agents. And so just getting to finish building, I know this makes me sound like the biggest nerd in the world, but like getting to like open the rest of the states, learn licensing laws, put that puzzle together to, how do you build that seamless experience while still taking into consideration all the different states, the way they have to work. was just like that high, like that fascinating. It was like, oh, I am in. Like, this is going to be cool.
I get it.
Yeah, right. Same thing. Yeah. It's that, what's it going to be like here? This is going to be cool, and it's funny because even after we got all those states opened, there was no lull. Like, then it's like, okay, so every system we build, we grow so fast, we just broke it. All right, let's go build something new, and you get that. I mean, we're just in this constant, we're the $1 billion startup that is just still busting butt and moving forward. And, and the other thing, and I know you understand this too, is like, I appreciate that Glenn hires those around him that do what they do in their area
100%.
And then says, go.
100%.
Yeah. And, if you're off course, he'll correct you if you've gotten away from his vision, which you expect, but other than that, he's more of the, here's my vision, just disappear, go make it happen. And it's awesome that way.
It is so awesome. I had Glenn on the show last year, and he was saying that I will actually pay top dollar for a specialist, but really not pay anything for a generalist. And it's so true, because everyone that he has on his executive team is really the top tier of where their own sort of like lane is, right? And that's what's really exciting about working for our company.
Well, and how cool is it that, like, if you and I were not working virtually, would we have ever gotten to work together? Probably not. Like, by him doing it the way he's done it, he's enabled the best to work with the best. And then we get to push each other. And, it's like, as an agent, you never wanted to be the top agent in the office. I always wanted one above me at least, so that I knew where I wanted to get, and like here, we still get that, where it's like, if, and it's also even a knowledge sharing. Like, when you first came, like, we get to share knowledge back and forth. Like,
that's right.
And I love that, because again, I don't know the answer to everything. You don't know the answer to everything, but who probably does is the person pushing the buttons in payment processing, who knows the system better than I do. You know what I mean? So, like, we have this really cool knowledge base around that I just love.
It's so true. Now, you mentioned a lot of mentoring and coaching that you did for so long in your career. Yep. So I have a question. Someone coming into the business today, what would be 3 things that you would say to that agent that would be critical for them to succeed in our business?
I think my number one is always, you're running a business. And one thing I do think we let realtors down on is, I don't think we teach them real estate licensing law. We teach them how to stay safe and how to stay legal. We teach them how to take care of the client, but we don't teach them how to stay in business. We don't teach them the basic economics. And I think the first thing every realtor should do is either get a business coach or take some business classes, or really get in some of those masterminds. And remember, at the end of the day, it's not just a career, it's your own business, which is very different than a career. I think that's my first. And then there was a gentleman at my last brokerage, Gritzmacher. We just called him Grits. And, Grits and I would tell people the same thing, which was, if we could look back and think of the simplest mistake we made, like 101 would not have taken us much work. It was called database. Like, everybody talks about it and nobody does it. And then people act like, we've talked about it so much, it's not important. I'm like, no, actually, it's still talked about it that much, because you're like you build a good database and the world is yours, and you will get to stop marketing as much. You're going to only pay attention to your people, and they will bring you the business. Like, I remember running into some people that owned a towing company in when I was selling up in Prescott, and they commented to me that they were apologizing for having them and all their friends call me for anything and everything. And they said, we realized you've just became our go-to for everything. And so I think that's my third piece of advice is, I used to sell to a lot of first-time home buyers, right? And a lot of the younger kids. And a lot of agents didn't want to sell to them because it was only a $100,000 house or $150,000 house. And I was always trying to remind them that they're young and they're impressionable. And if you take care of them now, you become their resource. You become hey, by the way, Michael, after closing, I got you. Do you need a handyman? Do you need a plumber? Do you just need someone to repair your car? Do you need a babysitter? I'm your girl. You call me. And then when they're buying the next house and the next house, or when their friends are looking, you were their support system. You weren't just their agent. And so my third would be, become their go-to for everything outside of real estate, because what happens is They don't come back. They don't go to someone else to resell their house because they didn't like you. They go to someone else to resell their house because they forgot about you because you didn't stay in touch. We don't want to just stay in touch saying, Michael, you selling yet? You selling yet? You selling yet? We want to stay in touch saying, hey, by the way, I found a really cool babysitter down the road and I know you have kids. I used to have a realtor that she would keep track of her clients by their shopping habits. No kidding, Michael, shopping habits. She would know the women that were shoe freaks. And if DSW had a killer sale, she'd send it out to her shoe freaks.
Come on. I love that.
You know, and so I think those would be my three most, they sound simple, but simple, what does it?
But you know what? It's sort of like, I think it's really important. Your first one is so important with the idea of how many agents have a business plan, right? This is a business. This is a business. When I used to sell, I came from banking world. So I came from a very corporate world.
Oh, perfect.
So it was, you know, when I sort of mentor people and coach people now, I sort of say, what's your customer acquisition cost? And they're looking at me like I have 12 heads. And what's your rate of return on your marketing budget?
Right.
No one's ever.
Can they even tell you how many sales they had last year?
Well, let's hope they can, right?
Most can't. And again, I don't blame them. They're so busy. But, you know, I was the girl that would balance my checkbook and the companies to the penny. I don't care if it took me 4 more hours. I'm determined to find that darn penny. You know, and that detail, though, is crucial in everything. And it's what will keep them afloat.
100%. 100%. So tell me, Stacey, how do you motivate your team? Now, I have to say something. And it is, you know, I start looking as an observer almost. Your team adores you. They adore you. And you're an amazing leader. How do you motivate your team?
Open communication, for one. You know, even this morning, we were on a call talking about, we're going to have some decision rights meetings with some other departments just to make sure we're on the same page. And, you know, I think it's the little things like I had to ask, like I asked some questions, you know, am I giving you enough support without hindering your creative ability? Like I want to make sure that, you know, I'm giving them what they need and I'm there for them. But I also want to make sure that I'm not micromanaging them, which number one, I'm not really good at because it's not my strong. I hate it, you know, but I think we have a very open line of communication. As you well know, I'm kind of an open book and things just come out.
This is why we get along so well, actually.
Right, exactly. And they're very honest when they come out. And so I'm not always, I think, the normal executive they're used to dealing with. I'm the one that I still want them to know that if we were in brick and mortar and the toilets needed to be clean, I'm in. I'm Johnny on the spot with them, you know. And I think ours, we do, you know, I want them to know I'm there. And I think I've done an okay job at them understanding that, you know, my biggest concern is I know that if my staff is not happy, well taken care of, feeling empowered and feeling like they have a purpose and knowing what it is, that they won't actually serve the agent. So my first priority in getting the agent served is getting my staff taken care of. And I think if anything, I hope they know I have their back, you know, and I think most of them do, but I think that's our biggest. And then we really do one of the things that like Jim Noose, like he's kind of my first right-hand guy, right? And what I love about Jim is if you listen to some of our conversations, they'll sound almost like a heated debate. But the best part is that's what I want from my team. And I want them to all have that because our best ideas come from your worst, my worst, Glenn's worst, Jeff's worst. We combine all those really bad ideas together and we just came up with little parts of each one that become this amazing thing. And I think unless the people in the room feel safe enough to throw really bad ideas out there, you're never going to get the most creative ones because creativity comes from really bad things.
That's you know what? That's really so true. It is so true. Creativity comes when you have a safe place for discussion.
Yes.
Right? One of our know that they're not going to be chastised.
Oh yeah. I think one of the best compliments I got was from a gentleman that quit actually on his way out the door. I still talk to him. I still coach. We have like little coaching sessions every couple of weeks. And one of the things he had said to me was that he appreciated, I gave him freedom to fail without recourse. Like it was just, and it was like, okay, you know what? You tried it. By the way, let's not try it again. Wasn't fun, but hey, you know what? You tried. And he tried with logic. He tried with reasoning. Not everything's going to work. And then you just move on. You fix it and you move on. Like, we're not doing brain surgery.
That's right.
So pretty much everything we do is fixable. So
Absolutely.
I think it's just fun to let people figure out what they can and can't do.
That's awesome. So what's the greatest lesson you've learned in your career thus far?
Oh, it's one I still learn every day.
Which is what?
Stop being a perfectionist and allowing myself to fail. Notice I have no issues letting my team fail. I'm so hard on myself if something I've done is not perfect. Like, I kind of grew up in a family where second place was first loser. Not saying that is the right way to grow up, believe me. But it was. You know, my dad was a huge sports guy. Like, my spiral football throwing is spot on, baby. You know what I mean? Like, if you learned it, you did it right. Yeah. And so I've not necessarily, like, it's funny. I'm the worst critic on myself. Like, here's a funny moment. I've even noticed, I think Whiteside must have figured that out about me, because if he needs to bring me something, he brings it very lighthearted, very quick, to the point. Good talk, we're done. Go do things. Because I think even he knows I'll be twice as hard on myself as you'll ever be. Yeah. And I think probably my biggest lesson is I would actually probably do better, truthfully, and have more success than I have if I was better at failing myself, because that would give me the right to pick it up and clean it up.
That's really insightful. And I know that we just went through our little sort of team building exercise last month. And it was really that executive coaching that we had. And it was really wonderful space in there where I think everyone got very close also. And, you know, it was, Chris, outside, you're an incredibly strong leader. And so for you to be vulnerable with that vulnerability, in my mind, made you stronger.
And you're right. And I think you knew by the look on my face, and I'm going to throw sweet Courtney under the same bus. I think she was the same creature I was. Yeah. I think we were both like wiggling in our skin at the beginning of that. But at the end of it, I will say it was probably my favorite part of QBR. And for that reason, like, I walked out of there feeling safer, feeling like, and the other thing too is it gives you that empathy and that understanding for where the other person is coming from, because 100%. Sometimes in business, we get so into the results. You know, Mike Vane says a lot, assume positive intent. Good words from Mike. I
love that one. I love that one. So, you know what I learned recently on that trip also?
What?
Is that you're an excellent shooter.
I don't know if I'd use the word excellent. I just enjoy it.
Well, listen, I think you're being humble again. So I know it takes discipline to do that. Now, I want you to define discipline for yourself for me. How do you define it?
Discipline for me is just remembering to get up and do it when it's the last thing you want to do. So I have a strange joint disease called Ehlers-Danlos. And so it forces me to stay very exercise driven, right? Because movement is key to not hurting. And so I think of that a lot when I think of getting up in the morning. I don't feel like going on my walk. So guess what I have to do?
Get up in the morning and go on your walk.
More importantly, because I didn't want to, you know what I mean? And I think for me, discipline is finding the motivation inside you to get you going on the most moment when it's everything else in the world you want to do besides that. And just reminding yourself, I can go do everything else after I do this.
That's right.
No procrastination, or it won't get done.
Yeah. Listen, when the alarm clock rings at 5, that for me to go to the gym, I don't want to wake up at 5, but I also don't want to be 300 pounds.
There you go. And it is. And I think that is the biggest thing. And everybody's motivation is going to be something different. You know? That's right. But I think regardless of motivation, with enough practice, I think you can become more disciplined. I really do think it's practice.
100%. It's sort of like, what do they say? It takes 3 weeks to break a habit and 4 weeks to create a new one.
It'll be the other way around. Can you reverse that math?
I love it. So you've been at eXp 4 years now?
About 3.5, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me from your point of view, how is this meteoric rise? What's the reason behind it?
Right.
It's insane now.
We're the cool kids, though. It's funny. I think there are some things that make us feel different. I think that a lot of people are still, not because of the pandemic, this is prior to pandemic. I think a lot of people were still looking for new and different connections. And one of the things that I think I've seen a difference in the way agents communicate with each other, not us as staff, but agents, is, when you think of trying to mastermind with the best of the best in your area, a lot of agents still tend to hold back a little bit because they still feel like the person in your area is competition. Right. I happen to actually have a very different belief than that. I believe no one is your competition. There is more real estate than you'll ever want to sell. And that the more you help the person around you, the more you're actually going to sell. But regardless of my belief system, I still think that our agents, it's been really neat to see them where they're getting to learn West Coast style to East Coast style, Midwest to South. Everybody's actually in an environment where they genuinely do better when the person next to them does better, because they're taking advantage of the stock. They're taking advantage of everything. So they're no longer competition. And just that level of sharing and that level of masterminding, I think is really cool. And when I go to our events, it's fascinating to see like that genuine, where their eyes light up and they're so excited to see that person that they've been seeing in Avatar world. And now they got to meet them. And as to where when we were in our more localized offices, you'd go to a national event, but you didn't actually recognize anybody in the room because you don't associate with them in their office. Yeah. This gives people that ability to get that close bond and make network connections across the country. And so I just think even for the agents, that connection has been huge. I think that a lot of us who went through, I still call them the dark times, like the last crash around, 2009 and all that. And I think, realtors remember showing up at the office with locked doors. And so I think there's a lot of agents where being with a financially sound company, debt-free, I think they also value their time more than ever. And so once they realize that it's actually easier to get FaceTime with your broker in our environment than it is to get FaceTime with a broker in brick and mortar, because by the way, I didn't have to shower, didn't have to put on real clothing. I could stay in my PJs, and yet I can go share a contract on a wall. I think I really think it's just a different value proposition. And I think
that there's no gatekeepers, right? I mean, anyone can go in and go see you, go see me, go see Jason, go see Glenn at any time without an appointment. If we're in our office, we're welcome to everyone. That could never happen in another organization.
No. And I think that helps us keep perspective as well, because I think sometimes, it's like you used to tell brokers, sell a couple houses a year just to make sure you are in tune with what your agents are going through. Because of the way we're set up, we're even if we may not be in production anymore, we're still close enough to that we can maintain some of the empathy for what they go through.
100%. 100%. So what advice would you give your 10-year-old self from your lens now?
Number one, every decade is going to get so much cooler and so much better. Don't be afraid to grow up, right?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I think, again, it would go back to, I've always kind of been a risk taker. I mean, if I look back at not even in real estate, but just life, but I took risks, but a lot of them were more calculated, more this and that. And I think if I could do anything, like you think of Glenn, like Glenn is like, well, let's just do it. And if it's not broken, break it. And then we'll just rebuild it anyway. So don't worry about it. I think there is a little more of that I probably could have done when I was younger, of just, carrying a little less what everybody else thought about me and just doing it. Be me, do me, whatever made me happy at the time, And I think even in real estate, I think a lot of people come in and they hear that most real estate agents don't make it. and they've already set a doubt in the back of their head, I think remove that doubt and just, because I'm finally at a point now where I can honestly say that, like, I know I can pretty much do anything I put my mind to, if I really want to do it. But I didn't always believe that. And I didn't genuinely believe it. And I think knowing that younger would have been better.
That's a great sense of freedom, isn't it?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now,
and my husband and I talk all the time that, like, the worst, usually when my husband and I have something that comes up that feels like, oh my God, seriously, how did this happen? It sucks at the time. And then we always laugh if we can, one of us can pull each other out of the muck. It's like, you know what, every time this happens, it always works out for us better in the end. Like, we always end up where we were supposed to be. And we've realized that. And I think if you can remember that in the rest of your life, that, you know, every bad relationship, every bad job, every bad anything you've ever had prepared you for where you are now. And without that, you wouldn't be who you are.
That's so true. You know, I was diagnosed with colon cancer at a very young age. I was 24. And when I went through it, in hindsight, you look back and it was like, my God, it was the greatest gift ever. And I say that now, and it was that sense of, you know, anyone who knows me knows that I'm very black and white. I don't do gray very much. And so it's that whole idea that you're either going to love me or not, and that's fine.
Yeah,
because I can't control that reaction.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right? And you keep moving. And it's sort of like you go find your tribe and you go and help the people that you can. And that's what you sort of like go with, right? And so that is it's a different lens that you see the world through. And it becomes much more like, you know, this is we're all born with our own power, talent, and strength.
Yes.
And it's that sense of discovering it and letting it reach that potential, which is really beautiful.
And realizing you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's
right.
Okay.
It's great, actually, because then you have freedom for those that you are.
Absolutely.
You feel that space in.
Absolutely.
And that's really great.
Yeah,
I want to shift a little bit. Okay. So I also know that you're amazingly philanthropic. And, you know, this is something that it's one of the core values of our company as well. So share with me a little bit about what those efforts have been thus far for you.
That's such a good question. I think if I think of it inside the real estate world, humorously, if you know anything about teaching in the real estate world, it's not the most lucrative end of our business. Should we call it that, right?
Some would call it charity.
But I'm a genuine believer that it was one of the things that I have found the most joy in is giving of my time and energy to the brand new agents, the ones that have just trying it. And they were always my favorite to spend. You know, if I needed to be with someone on a night or a weekend that was an agent, I want the one that's in, you know what I mean? That is just
brand new,
clawing and scratching. And when they come back to you and say that something you said to them 6 months ago made a difference and changed them, I'm totally in. And then other than that, I mean, the reason there's 4 dogs in my house and there used to be 5, I'm a gutless wonder when it comes to dogs. Like, I'm a sucker. I mean, I literally, my mom would tell people I would drive, and this is not a joke. I remember driving down the road and a stray ran in the road and just sat down in front of my car. Like, I swear, there's a sign on me that just says, she'll stop and take you home. And I remember my ex-husband at the time, he was coming home and I was on the phone with my mom and she's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, maybe he won't notice. We have so many in the house. And my husband now has threatened, these are the last, you know, and it's funny because we just, you know, in moving to Puerto Rico, we've been talking about, you know, what do we want to really focus on there? And, you know, for me, it's going to be focusing on those animals that I've always considered are the ones that need a voice because they can't always speak for themselves.
Actually, you segued right into my next question. I was going to ask you about Puerto Rico. Now that you sort of moved there, that's got to be an incredible lifestyle change also. So tell me how that's been for you and your family.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
I love it. I'm a big water person. Just the sound of it can bring me down from my most stressed moment. And so, you know, it was one of those where as soon as Glrem opened in Puerto Rico, it was like, I get the opportunity to keep my job and go live on an island and, you know, still come back and visit the States when I want to visit everybody, but I get to go live this completely different adventure. And with what we do for a living, it's pretty go, and it can be pretty stressful. So getting to have like that out be so much closer. I mean, it's 6-minute drive to my favorite beach bar. I mean, really,
I love that.
Is life good or what? And I think for me, the other thing too, that the culture is one thing that like, I love their culture. Mm-hmm. I love the people of Puerto Rico. They are welcoming. And I swear to you, when they offer you for help and you feel like it's that they didn't really mean it, but they were just offering to be nice. Oh, no, you better take them up on it, because it's almost an insult. Like, they mean it. Yeah. They care with every ounce of their being. And I love that about that. It was funny. Like, we love Belize for that same reason. And so between those two, we couldn't resist the opportunity to just go for it.
That's amazing.
I'm loving it.
So you're going to move to Belize when we open there?
I was waiting to see where you're going to open, You did Puerto Rico, so we went there first. You never know. Maybe Belize will be my next adventure. I am so not opposed to new adventures.
I love that. So I have one final question for you. This is a question that I love to ask almost all of my guests. So in your book of life, what is this chapter called?
I am in, and again, you and I kind of you already talked about it, like I just turned 50 this year, and I know it sounds dumb, but I was excited because my 20s were good, but my 30s were really cool. Yeah. 40s were amazing. And so I'm just excited to see what my 50s bring. I feel like this part is my more happy, settled. Like, I feel like the luckiest human in the world, because like I have like the most amazing relationship with my husband. We are by far just buddies. We love the heck out of each other. We love hanging out. So I've got like this amazing home life.
Yeah.
And then I get to do what I love for a living, which is solve puzzles every day and put things together. And so for me, it's just like, I feel like this is that time in life when everything I worked for and everything I wanted, I'm like, dang, I got it all. This is really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's just like my happy settled port.
I love that. Well, you know what? You make other people really very happy. And it's, including me, it was one of those things that you and I, when we were just talking, there was always this great connection. And then when we met in person, it was like, oh my God, this is it. This is like long lost sister. This is great.
Yes.
So it's been a delight. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh my God, it's been so much fun. And I can't wait to see you again in person. And I'm hoping it's going to be very soon.
I think I'll probably see you in August. I think I'll see you in Texas, won't I?
In August.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, you will.
Awesome.
It'll be great. Thank you again, Stacey.
Thank you
for all of you for listening. This has been the Global Luxury Real Estate Mastermind with me, your host, Michael Valdes.